A global summit has started in Geneva aimed at finding better ways to support the world's growing number of refugees. It's the first meeting of its kind. It brings together politicians, business leaders and those affected, people who have been forced to leave their homes. The UN says persecution and war have forced 26 million people around the world to flee their homelands. Almost half come from just 3 countries. We're talking about Syria, Afghanistan and South Sudan. And before the conflict in Syria, the single largest refugee population was Palestinians. Now, most refugees live in countries bordering their own. Some spend their whole lives in camps like Dadaab in Kenya, like Mohamed from Somalia, who we meet in our first report.
Mohamed Abdi Abdullahi has come to pray at his father's grave, hidden away in one of the biggest refugee camps in the world, Dadaab. He's here to honor the memory of his father, but the site is also yet another painful reminder of his own suffering.
I feel sad that I am still living in the camp where my father got sick and passed away.
Mohamed's parents fled their still conflict-ridden home country Somalia almost 3 decades ago to seek refuge in neighboring Kenya. When Mohamed was a child, he would have never thought that at the age of 28, he, his wife and 3 children would still be refugees. Here, according to Kenyan law, they are confined to life inside the camp and are not allowed to work.
Both my wife and I were born here. Our children were born here. It's very difficult to stay where you were born for your entire life. We don't have the freedom of movement, which is a basic, universal human right. I feel like I'm in prison and I'm not able to leave.
Mohamed is one of more than 200,000 refugees here in Dadaab. He feels unwanted in Kenya. The government has been threatening for years to close the camp, heightening his feelings of uncertainty. He also feels neglected by the international community, which has shifted its attention to other humanitarian crises elsewhere.
Dadaab was never meant to be a long-term solution. Yet for most people, life as a refugee here in the camps is all they know. This drawn-out encampment, the deteriorating level of humanitarian assistance, and the only distant prospect of resettlement has collectively taken a severe mental health toll on thousands of residents.
Médecins Sans Frontières, one of the NGOs operating here, says the protracted crisis in the camp has caused a growing number of refugees to develop mental health conditions.
Depression is one of the illnesses which we see alarmingly becoming increased amongst the refugees. Depression is serious because most of the time you get refugees attempting suicide. It's actually due to depression.
Mohamed says he suffers from anxiety and insomnia, and he's not alone. He says many of his former school friends have given up hope. Some of them drifted into drug addiction, others have even committed suicide.
Some of my friends have hung themselves because of what they are going through. It's happened several times in this camp. Sometimes I think about killing myself because of the hardship I'm going through, but then I think of my children. They always save me.
Mohamed says he's not ready to give up just yet. He wants to fight on for his children so that they can have a better future, so they can get an education and enjoy the freedoms he never had. For himself, his wish is to leave the camp before he dies, so that he doesn't have to be buried next to his father as a refugee.
Well, for more on this, let's bring in now Martin Rentsch in Geneva. He works at the UN Refugee Agency. Thanks for joining us, Martin. What exactly can we expect from this conference?
Thank you. Well, this is not just another conference. The Global Refugee Forum is the first world summit on refugees. It's not about, just being governments here donating some money. It's about the whole of society approach. So we have here private sector, we have academia, we have, of course, states, big hosting countries, and they've all come together to this summit. We have more than 2,000 people here, to fill the gap and to find tangible solutions for the more than 26 million refugees that we have in the world.
Now, this issue, it really hits young people. We're talking about half of all refugees under 18. What are the biggest challenges connected to that?
It's indeed a significant challenge because with them, the challenge is not only, to feed them, to give them water, to give them shelter, because the main issue is they have no perspective in life. They have no prospect. The average duration of stay in a refugee camp is 25 years. And that is terrible, and this is not sustainable. And those young people especially, they need those perspectives through education. For example, the German DAFI program is a tangible program that really makes a difference for those young people, and we need more of that. We need refugees to be self-reliant. We need programs for that, and that's what we are here for at this conference.
On that point, Martin, what role does Germany play at this forum?
Germany has over the last couple of years, has been a front runner of refugee protection because it's one of the few countries that not only significantly finances humanitarian assistance in countries such as Lebanon, or Turkey, Jordan, and other countries, but it also took in quite a significant amount of people, more than 1 million. So it can speak to both sides, Germany is on the eye level with countries like Kenya or other peoples in the Middle East, and it can relate to the problems there. And so Germany's role is really crucial to address the global problems that there are in terms of refugee crisis.
That said, increasingly we have seen the fact that another real problem is that those countries receiving the greatest number of refugees, they're often left alone when dealing with them. Any ideas on the table of how to better support those countries?
Absolutely, you're right. I mean, to be precise, actually more than 85% of the refugees globally, they live in poor countries, and this needs to change. Those countries, they need much more support, and it's not a problem about the ideas. They exist. The problem is about a lack of implementation of these ideas, and that's why we are here at this forum to connect new players that have come to the table, such as the World Bank or the private sector, to have a real whole of society approach and to not only rely on humanitarian players such as UNHCR to address the problems in the field.
Mm-hmm. All right, Martin Rentsch from the UN Refugee Agency in Geneva, we wish you the best of luck with getting those commitments and at that meeting. Thanks a lot.